Good evening, everyone. You're very welcome to the first of a series of talks we're presenting on postgraduate study at MIC. My name is Dr. Amy Healy. I'm the acting Research Postgraduate Quality Manager. It's a mouthful, I know. I work in the graduate office, and tonight I'll be moderating this evening's talk, which will be presented by my colleague, Dr. Rebecca Breen, who's the coordinator of doctoral programs at MIC. Actually, Rebecca coordinates all research programs at MIC, so both master's and doctoral. Now this evening, Rebecca will be talking about basically an introduction to postgraduate study and how postgraduate study can contribute to employability. Now, we won't be able to hear you for questions, so I would encourage you to use the Q&A function. We will be seeing those questions as they come in as Rebecca's speaking, and I will help deliver your question to Rebecca after she's done talking. Now, just to say, rest assured, this will be recorded. So if you've missed parts of it, well, those who come on after this won't know that, but just so you know, the talk is recorded. You don't have to take active notes. It will be up exactly on the website where you registered for this talk. So without further ado, I'd like to present my colleague, Dr. Rebecca Breen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you very much indeed for that wonderful introduction. And you're all very welcome from wherever you are. You're all very welcome to this session this evening. We'll move along to the next slide, please. And just to provide some contact details, if we can move along to slide number 2. So somewhat defunct are my email and, my phone and office numbers, but my email indeed is where you can contact me further to this presentation should you wish to address any further questions beyond tonight's session. But that is who I am, where I'm based. I'm coordinator of doctoral programs in the Mary Immaculate College Research and Graduate School. There's a link there to our website for further information. And we'll move along quickly to the next slide, please, number 3. So why study postgraduate level? Well, people's reasons will be many and varied. The advantages of postgraduate study are that it allows you perhaps to enter employment with additional skills and knowledge following on from your undergraduate training. You stand out from others in securing employment and perhaps in advancing a career track. So I've listed some possible reasons that you all might have here. So, for example, continuing your studies, improving your job prospects. You may have career or professional requirements as a part of your envisaged path. You may wish to change direction or indeed travel or broaden your horizons. But the reasons will likely include some combination really from this menu of motivations, and these will be ranked in different orders according to your circumstances, your preferences, and the stage at which you're at when you're thinking about pursuing a postgraduate qualification. So if you are perhaps thinking about continuing your studies as one motivation, well, really this will be for the love of your subject. Perhaps you're interested in pursuing postgraduate study for its own sake, and really a desire to explore some aspect of your undergraduate studies in more depth. In fact, I go so far as to say that a passion for your subject is going to be a requirement at postgraduate level, and especially if you're embarking on an MA or PhD by research. You may wish, as I've suggested, to improve your job prospects. As you all know, we're all increasingly in a more competitive job market, and there'll be the need to stand out from amongst your peers. You may wish to continue with lifelong learning, somewhat of a buzzword these days, and this will include, certificate, diploma, master's, doctoral study, all to improve a skill set and strengthen your credentials as a job applicant. In some cases, there'll be an improved earning power, you'd hope. Your career track or path that you envisage may in fact have requirements, professional requirements that really necessitate that you take postgraduate study at some level or take a particular program. So and this to qualify you in a specific area. So just as an example, if you are on an academic track, a PhD really will be a requirement for any permanent post that you might hope to secure in the future. You may perhaps wish to change direction. Maybe you're experiencing some vocational uncertainty, or indeed you're very clear that you want to switch career paths. So you may be considering a conversion course at postgraduate level. And this then, of course, will allow you to draw from 2 areas of specialism in pursuing a new direction. You may wish to broaden your horizons even. I'm addressing perhaps those of you who are zooming into us from further afield, from abroad. I know we have some guests from partner institutions, partner universities around the world here. Well, it's this evening. Not sure what time it is wherever you all are, but a part of this session this evening will look at international students and options for you guys. So, you know, you may wish to broaden your horizons. And I guess in my own case, I can speak to postgraduate programs. I completed a master's and PhD abroad, and indeed within those programs, I was also afforded the opportunity to travel and conduct research on research trips in Europe, in the US, and in Latin America. So, you know, really that's, for me, has been a really very valuable experience. And yeah, I guess in terms of employability, I can draw from my own experience or tell you something of my own story, in that, you know, out of undergraduate, I went straight into an MPhil, a master's, which looked more specifically at some of the areas I had been interested at undergraduate level, pursued those in more depth. Really, I guess at that stage, not quite certain what career path to embark upon, and following my heart, I suppose, at that stage, or some sort of desire to engage further with specific subject areas. I came home from that. I returned from the UK to take up a year's lecturing in a university here in Ireland, but very quickly realised that, you know, I was only ever going to get part-time or non-permanent contracts, and saw the need for a doctoral qualification. So I suppose I moved from having pursued an initial postgraduate qualification out of a desire to continue with my studies into a much more pragmatic mindset, whereby I really saw the need to acquire a PhD in order to secure a permanent lecturing post, which was my desire then, and did secure a permanent lectureship in a UK university. And I suppose along the way in pursuing both the master's and PhD, I acquired transferable skills, the kinds of transferable skills that postgraduate study affords, and these allowed me to secure the post that I'm in now when I wanted to return to Ireland for family reasons. So there are very many reasons, I guess, is the essence. And if we can move along to the next slide, I can talk about why you might want to study at postgraduate level at Mary Immaculate College specifically. So really, indeed, our campus has a very vibrant postgraduate community with over 350 people pursuing further study, and international students are really very especially welcome. There are a large variety of postgraduate programs in both education and the liberal arts. So you might choose Mary I for that reason specifically, to pursue a program in one or other faculty. We have a range, as I shall show you shortly, of taught postgraduate programs, quite a menu to choose from, as well as research postgraduate programs. And these are both in education and the liberal arts, and from graduate diploma level right up to doctoral level, level 10 qualifications. And so yes, MIC can really help you build on your existing degree with both taught and research options available. There are, as I've suggested, specific programs or programs that will very specifically welcome international students or be tailored to you guys, and we can talk about those. If we can move along then to the next slide. I have, as I say, quite a comprehensive list of the postgraduate taught programs at Mary Immaculate College. So taught programs really have many elements of bachelor's degrees, in that they offer students the chance to engage with a range of core or elective classes. These, of course, are evaluated by exams, assessments, and project work as you go. And in addition to scheduled modules and assessment modes, master's degrees or level 9 degrees and structured PhD programs at level 10 include both talk components, as I've suggested, but also the completion of a research dissertation or thesis on a prescribed or a chosen rather topic. So the postgraduate programs then, just to give you the list, are these. There are really very many, perhaps too many to go into in detail tonight. So I'll just give you the list for now. Antastas Irchéime Jagus Overvannaha, so our TTA San Irvan Scaliach Langhelga agus Gaeltachta. And you know, if you've questions in relation to each of these programs, we can perhaps address those in the Q&A at the end of this session, or equally following the links in this PowerPoint presentation, we can arrange to get this to you. We'll bring you to the course page and the course directors for each of these programs. So there's also the certificate in Christian leadership and education, a graduate certificate which can become a diploma and indeed a Masters of Education in Middle Leadership and Mentoring in primary and post-primary settings. And this is offered at our campus in Thurles, the Mary Immaculate College campus in Thurles. It's a programme endorsed by the Centre for School Leadership and is really designed to suit teachers' professional lives. So if you have an interest in middle leadership, this could be the programme for you. There is a graduate certificate in academic practice available internally at the moment, graduate certificate or a diploma in autism studies, a graduate diploma or indeed a master's in education in adult and further education. There's a graduate diploma or MEd, master's in education in information and communication technologies in primary teaching, graduate diploma or MEd in special education, Masters of Education in Leadership of Wellbeing in Education, and the Masters of Education in Religious Education. So that's the list, not quite complete. If we could move along to the next slide, there are some more that you might wish to choose from. If we can move along to the next slide, please, slide number 6. So the next option you might be interested is the Maastricht san Idachish Langhelgagus Gaeltachta. There's an MA in Applied Linguistics, MA in Christian Leadership and Education, MA in Education and the Arts, or META as we affectionately refer to it here, the MA in History, MA in Local History, MA in Media Studies, MA in Modern English Literature, MA in Music Education, MA in STEM Education, Maastricht Gaelga, the Master of Education or MEd, the Professional Doctorate in Educational and Child Psychology, the Professional Master of Education, which is in Primary Teaching or the PME, and the Structured PhD or MEd in Literacy Education, an MEd in Literacy Education, which you may take to Structured PhD level as well. So that's the list of taught programs. As I say, there's a lot there, a lot to choose from. I'm bombarding you with the full list tonight, but if there are specific queries you have, we can, as I say, talk those through at the end of this session, or indeed the course director for each program will really have the very specific information in relation to their own program. So if we can move to slide number 7 then. We can talk a little bit about research programs, postgraduate research programs at MIC. So yeah, undertaking a master's or a doctorate by research really does offer a candidate a chance to do extensive and independent research on a particular topic. And obviously you'll eventually complete a dissertation or a thesis to a very high standard. At MIC, you'll work with a supervisor or indeed a panel of supervisors who will mentor you throughout the process. With a doctorate, for example, as well as producing a large single piece of publishable research, you will also do an oral examination or a viva voce, as you may be aware. There are different modes through which you can conduct doctoral level research. So the structured PhD program is an alternative to the traditional, I suppose, monastic, it's sometimes been called, style of PhD whereby the researcher works with their supervisor primarily on their own piece of research, whereas on the structured programme, of which there are a number here listed, you might combine taught modules and other assessment modes along with the key aspects of a doctorate. So that's particularly in years 1 and 2. You'll follow modules for credit, and usually by years 3 and 4, you're focusing solely on the research project itself, which you will have been carrying along since year 1, 2. The professional doctorate then is another mode. This is a practice-based or practitioner work-based level 10 specialist qualification. And this again incorporates both taught and research components, and is very much more practical, I suppose, than, as I've suggested, the traditional PhD by research. So again, I had included the professional doctorate in educational and child psychology and the structured PhD or Masters of Education in Literacy Education on the previous slide as taught programs, because they are that too. They begin, you would start out as a taught postgraduate student, and after, in the case of the MEd in Literacy Education, for example, you would transfer into year 2 of the structured PhD in Literacy Education, and at that point become a research student. If you preferred to leave after year 1 with your taught MEd, you know, that's fine too. And so it's an option as to whether you wish to continue and pursue your work to PhD level. Likewise, the structured PhD in education starts out as a taught program in years 1 and 2, though again you will have a module which is your research thesis module, so that you're all the while working on that with your supervisor, and by the time you reach years 3 and 4, you're focused solely on that with a view to submitting your thesis for examination for your viva voce. Same structure with the applied linguistics. You may do an MA in applied linguistics and leave it at that, as it were, or you may continue with the structured PhD in applied linguistics. The structured PhD in contemporary Irish studies is one that might particularly interest international students, and it's available online. There are a number of options through which to pursue this. So for example, you would do 1 year with 6 modules across a number of departments. So Irish studies, history, English, Irish, media and communication, and so on. And then an interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary thesis on some aspect of Irish studies that will have interested you along the way. So there's no residential requirement there, and is all available online, as I've suggested. Another option with this programme, the Contemporary Irish Studies, is an Irish Studies PhD thesis, which would be supervised across departments depending on the topic. And again, this is available as an online distance learning option. The MA Arts or PhD in Arts by Research then, and the MA in Education or PhD in Education by Research are again I suppose more traditional modes of pursuing these programs. These are really where you have a thesis proposal, where you have a sense of the project that you wish to carry out from the beginning. You would have liaised as a part of your application with a supervisor or supervisors at Mary I, who will support you in putting together a research proposal. And on the basis of that proposal, you know, your application might be accepted, and you would develop that proposal into a workable either master's thesis or PhD thesis. And it's possible to register in the first instance on a master's with a view to transferring to PhD. And this can be particularly useful in the case, for example, of somebody who might wish to pursue a PhD but doesn't yet have a master's qualification. So you would register initially on the master's register, and there's an 18-month window within which to organise, with the support of your supervisors, a transfer panel which would allow you to transfer to the PhD register if successful. So It can be a standalone master's, as I say, and equally you may convert that, as it were, to PhD in either arts or education. And these are the more traditional routes without modules that you would need to follow for credit as you go. In saying that, as I'll be talking about shortly, there are a great many supports that are offered by the college and by the Research and Graduate School, and amongst those would be transferable skills training. And so there are modules that you would take along the way that would help and support and complement the research that you're carrying out, whilst not being for credit as such as a part of your programme. So if we can move on to slide 8, please. I'll just speak to the international students amongst you. There is a list here of those programmes that, of the programmes that I've outlined just now, those that will be suitable or available to international students. So we have the Masters in Applied Linguistics, Masters in Media Studies, the Masters in Modern English Literature, and this is actually available online. So again, there's no residency requirement with this programme. There's the MEd, as we call it, the Master of Education, and following on from the Applied Linguistics, the MA in Applied Linguistics, there's a structured PhD option there. There's also the structured PhD in Contemporary Irish Studies, as I've spoken about briefly already, and that's available online. And again, the Masters in Arts by Research or PhD in Arts by Research, as well as the Masters or PhD in Education by Research. So I suppose some of the advantages of master's level, at least, or a postgraduate level qualification in Ireland are the well, the 2-year stay-back visa. So you may be aware that if you've completed an undergraduate programme in Ireland, there's a 1-year stay-back visa. Well, if you continue on, or if you take a master's programme at or a programme at postgraduate level, there's a 2-year stay-back visa, in fact, so that might be enticing for some. The application for programmes for our international students is through the PAC system, and just to flag that there's a €50 application fee, but really any queries you have around these programmes and how to apply, you should contact the international office. There we have some wonderful people there. Holly and Alison will be really glad to help you there, and their phone numbers are there, but as I say, these days perhaps email is best. So international@mic.ul.ie. So if we can move along to the next slide, then I'll talk a little bit about the kinds of supports that are on offer at Mary I that will see you through to completion of your programme. In the Research and Graduate School, we have supports to offer to postgraduate students, really from the application process right through to examination, and for us, the happy part, to graduation. These supports include a research office that oversees and coordinates, supports institutional research. So that's really both for staff and students. And as a postgraduate student, you really do become a member of the research community at Mary I. We have a graduate school that provides full academic administration services for all research students. So again, right from the application process, you're supported through to submission of your thesis and everything in between, and all comings and goings. You know, we understand that people may not follow a smooth or clear trajectory from start to finish, and that taking on, for example, a 4-year PhD, normal registration for a PhD is 4 years, and that there isn't always a clear path through for some, or that life interrupts. And so, you know, we can facilitate things like leave of absence and returns from such leave and so forth. So we do all of that. There are also various finance schemes for research funding, networking, upskilling, conference work, all the kinds of things that you'll be engaged with as a research student at MIC. We provide research mentoring and transferable skills training, as I've suggested. So, you know, alongside modules you may be taking for credit, there's also the option to pursue the kinds of transferable skills training that that I've mentioned, which will include, you know, for example, research skills, how to really become a better researcher, career management, you know, so where does this study fit on your career track, the path that you envisage. We look at things like research ethics and integrity. So if you're conducting a particular research, you know, what the impact of that is and can be, and what ethical guidelines and principles you will need to adhere to. So there's advice around all of those and criteria to follow that we can inform you about. We look at communication skills, you know, presentation, how to go about all of that, personal effectiveness, project management, you know. Ultimately, a thesis trying to produce a master's or PhD thesis really is about project management and bringing a project to a conclusion. We talk you through applying for funding and how to support yourself through your postgraduate path. So these are lots of kinds of transferable skills that you know, apply to the academic and research context, but equally can be transferred to other areas that you might be envisaging or that you might pursue, even that you hadn't quite thought you would when you embarked upon a postgraduate study, be it a master's or PhD. You know, a lot can change and you come out the other side and can speak to the kinds of transferable skills that you have acquired along the way. We also then provide, you know, regular seminars on the process, on how to, for example, submit your thesis for examination, you know, we have a session on surviving the viva, how to survive that grilling. And, you know, we really do encourage and support students to plan and prepare for degree completion. I suppose we also look at and offer guidance, as I've said, around ethics clearance. There's a research ethics board at Mary I, and we guide our research students through that. There's also a digital open access repository for staff and postgraduate researchers' publications. So we point you to those and show you how to access those. If we can move on to the next slide, number 10, I can talk about some supports for postgraduate students at, you know, I guess a more practical, pragmatic level, day-to-day level. You will be provided as a research student. PGR there represents postgraduate research students, and PGT is for postgraduate taught. So research students will have an individual study desk and computer for the duration of their registration to, you know, obviously allow them to work in a quiet study space and to progress their work in that way. There's also a designated computer and study room for postgraduate taught students. There are also recreational or, you know, communal spaces, dedicated kitchen facilities for postgraduate students taught and research. And I suppose what you'd be most interested in perhaps are funding and scholarship opportunities, and I'll talk a little bit about those. But the mentorship that we can provide includes both mentorship around applying for external funding applications, such as the IRC or the Irish Research Council, awards, Fulbright scholarships, for example, and Fulbright language teaching opportunities. You know, and we have awardees in all of those categories. We have IRC students in Mary I currently, Fulbright students who are in Canada and the US teaching Irish, for example, and otherwise pursuing their research there. So we can advise on all of that. And just if we can briefly move to the next slide, number 11, I'll just parse the options that are available within MIC. There's a session on the 3rd of March actually on applications and funding, and, you know, really getting into the nitty-gritty of the various awards that are on offer. But just to give you an overview here this evening of the supports in terms of finances that are available at MIC, we have some scholarships and awards. There's the MIC Doctoral Award, the MIC Studentship Awards, and those are competitive awards, you know, and we can, all information is live on our website currently, but if you want to contact us, we can talk you through an application that you might be thinking about submitting in line with an application to a research programme. There are MIC departmental assistantships, which are a combination of fee waivers together with paid hours. So you would teach or perform duties within your department, and that would be agreed with your head of department as to what you would do. And you would receive a stipend monthly as well as a fee waiver. So those are really very lucrative too, and provide great experience, you know, particularly if it is that you're interested in a teaching career. To have had experience as you go as a researcher is really invaluable. Those interested in theology and religious studies may be interested at PhD level to know that there's an All Hallows Trust together with Mary I, that there's funding there for research projects that are in the area of TRS, theology and religious studies. So again, there'll be some more information on these on the 3rd of March. For those looking to pursue or to fund postgraduate taught programs, well, internally, if an MIC undergraduate student, if you've recently graduated and received a first-class honours, you may be in the position of availing of a President's Scholarship Award, which goes some way towards offsetting the cost of your fees. There are also some sports scholarships, again, for those sporty people amongst you, and the details of that, again, are available on the website. And they're really, you know, again, very prestigious, and I think to the value of €4,000. So, you know, will really offset all of the fees within a given year. I'm conscious of time and wanting to give plenty of time to questions and answers. So maybe we can leave there rather abruptly. The final slide just says thank you very much for your attention thus far. If we have any questions coming in at this point, maybe we can start to field some of those.
I'm back again.
Hi, Amy.
You can hear me? Hi, Rebecca. So I've been watching the feed. Can you hear me? Am I echoing?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll go in order that the questions have come in. So the first had to do with scholarship opportunities available for international candidates, and I believe Holly Kalman has answered that. But I suppose, Rebecca, if you just want to reiterate about the awards you've talked about, are they open to international students?
Absolutely. The MIC Doctoral Award and MIC Studentships are absolutely open, and indeed the departmental assistantships if you're interested in teaching as well, in lieu of paying fees and, you know, receiving a stipend. Those are available certainly to international students. So in applying for a program, you would signal that you're also applying for these awards, and you may submit that award at the same time, that application rather, yeah. Okay,
and the next, and I would say to the person who wrote that, if you look down the questions and answers, Holly Kalman has given information about a specific program specific for international students that you might want to refer to as well. The next question wants to know about moving on to PhDs after you get an MA. Is it possible to immediately go from an MA program straight into a PhD program?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose there are a number of different options. It may be that you take a postgraduate taught program, in which case you would need to complete that program and then pursue a separate PhD application. In saying that, there are some programs set up such that you may register first. So, for example, the MEd in Literacy Education or the MA in Applied Linguistics, you may register in the first instance for the Masters, do year one, and if you're, if you want to leave it at that, that's fine. You exit with a Masters, or indeed you may transfer then to a structured PhD, and you would transfer into year two, so that you're not starting over, as it were, or having to repeat year one in any way. You would transfer into year two. Equally, it may be possible on a Master's Research, either in Arts or Education, to register in the first instance on the Master's Register with a view to transferring to PhD. So again, that transfer panel, if it's a formal panel that's organised to adjudicate as to whether this, what was originally a Master's project, could in fact be a PhD project if there's sufficient merit there. That transfer panel would happen within an 18-month window. So effectively 3 semesters you have within which to transfer to PhD if you want to do so.
Now, on a related point, somebody's asked if they already completed a diploma in adult education many years ago, could they automatically apply for an MA in adult education? So how much weight does the diploma carry, I suppose, or can it be applied? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It would depend on the masters that you want to apply for. I would advise you, if it's a specific taught masters you're interested in, to contact the course leader directly. If it's a more general master's by research, certainly get in touch with myself and we could talk about, there's a facility for a recognition of prior learning and what it is that you have studied before and when, and the relevance of your degree to what you're proposing now. So, get in touch maybe with me, email address rebecca.breen@mic.ul.ie, with your just some details of what you studied and what you're proposing to study and how they feed into one another.
I've had a few questions from teachers, or you've had a few questions from teachers, I should say, wondering about how you can actually work full-time and manage some of these programs. So how flexible are the programs? Which programs are more flexible than others and fit better into, getting around? And it looks like some of these people might be in education, so they might be teachers. So
yeah. We have obviously lots of teachers undertaking programs whilst also in full-time employment. You would need some of the taught programs. You would need to contact the course directors to talk about the specifics and the modules that are required, the time that is implied with each of those. Some are only options full-time. And it really might be very challenging to carry both along. At research level, and certainly those, for example, on the structured PhD in education, maybe the structured MEd or structured PhD in literacy education, all our students are registered full-time, but they're all also, the vast majority of them are also working full-time. They have families, they have various other commitments, and it's a juggle. But equally, taught components in, for example, the structured PhDs in education or literacy education, those are all scheduled in really very intensive weekends, like Friday evening, all day Saturday, but just a couple of weekends in a semester, so that, there isn't a commitment during Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 or 9 to whatever your working hours are, so that, the people can be available on the one hand, and equally it's a kind of blitzing of modules so that you can get through quite a decent amount. And then have a number of free weekends to perhaps work on assignments that might have been set. And it's a juggle, certainly, but it's structured so as to facilitate full-time working students.
Now, there's a couple questions about online provision. I mean, certainly with COVID-19, we've all had to shift over to online provision. Do you know if there's any courses that are going to be specifically online for next term? For those people who live away from Limerick, will there be a possibility of not having to be here during the week? I suppose that depends on programs, but just a sense. Do you have any sense at the moment what that will be like for next year? Yeah,
no, absolutely. The structured PhD in Contemporary Irish Studies, as I've said, and also the MA in Modern English Literature are specifically online programs. All other programs are also currently operating online. So I suppose it remains to be seen what will happen in the autumn and spring semesters. But in the scenario whereby restrictions are what they are now, those programs will be able to continue in the way that they have this semester and last, and indeed in the spring semester of last year too. Programs very quickly moved online and are all operating online at present, so that can continue if needs be.
Okay. There are a few questions about eligibility for scholarships. Somebody was wondering if they'd be able to get any type of scholarships if they were doing a PhD via distance. Another person wanted to know if you need to have first-class honors to apply for scholarships. So those are kind of broad. I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, well, the scholarships in particular are very competitive. So you would typically need a first-class honors, yes. That's not to preclude your application if you don't have it. You may have strengths in other areas that might offset a 2-1, for example. But do be aware that these are competitive awards and that they are inundated every year, and that there is stiff competition. The departmental assistantships are awarded, they're within the gift of the head of department to award a departmental assistantship each year. And so, you know, in working closely with your supervisor and head of department, you might flag that you're interested in that if you are. And, you know, they may have teaching duties that they would like to see you complete for them. And it could be kind of a symbiotic win-win scenario there if you know, you can provide teaching for the department and they support you in your application to whichever program you're applying for. If you can do some teaching there. Those are for our research students, research postgraduates.
We have a few questions that are in reference to people's previous educational acquirement, things that people have done in the past, whether that would count towards things at MIC. I suppose, like you said before, we would advise in those situations that they get in touch with our office for specific cases. Yes, because it's hard to discuss generally.
As I suggested, there's RPL, recognition of prior learning, but that'll be on a case-by-case basis. So, you know, and will depend on what you've done relative to what you're proposing to do and how those you know, how your previous qualifications or indeed experience. You know, it may be that you've spent very many years working in a particular area and not gained a qualification as such in that area at postgraduate level, and you're wondering if the years of experience can count towards your application. We'll certainly get in touch and we can iron out the specifics there and see if it can.
We had a few questions that came in before. Are there deadlines? Is this something that people need to be scurrying to get in before the end of this month for next term?
There are certain deadlines. Again, I would advise you to contact or to consult the program pages where the course directors will have info, but there are also sections on how to apply, and those sections for each program will have a deadline. I should flag that the PME, which is always very popular, has a deadline of the 29th of March, and that interviews for that program will then be on the 27th and 28th of May. So that's perhaps a deadline to flag. If you're interested in the DEXI program, as we call it, the Professional Doctorate in Educational and Child Psychology, I'm afraid it's too late. The deadline for this year has passed. That was the 29th of January, but that really signals the lead-in time that's required. So if you are thinking about that program, you are going to need the full year to get together your application, liaise with the course directors and so forth, in order to get an application in for 2022. But then as regards research applications at postgraduate and PhD level, at master's and PhD level, there is a system of rolling deadlines. So applications to MA and PhD, so that includes the structured PhD programs, are received on a monthly basis. They're reviewed by the college's postgraduate research subcommittee, which meets monthly. And so, you know, if you've missed the January meeting, let's say, as you will have done, if you were submitting this week, would be in time for the February sitting, and so on. So, you know, there's a kind of monthly rolling deadline, and equally you would hear back, you know, that month, the month of your submission, so you would know well in advance of the autumn semester.
Let's see, there's some people asking about what types of assistance incoming international students get in settling. I don't know if that's within your remit. I know Holly Cowan's office. Could you have any answers for that? Yes.
Holly and Alison will be really best placed to advise there. Absolutely. I know that they do advise and assist around settling international students in, trying to find maybe accommodation, or advise at least as to where incoming students might secure accommodation, assistance with visas, study visas, that kind of thing. Absolutely, they're available for all of those settling in issues.
Now, I'll be talking more about this on the 3rd. Somebody has some specific questions on the President's Scholarship. Can you just give a very quick rundown on how people, is that something you apply for, or is it something you're notified that you've received?
Yeah, if you are or have been an undergraduate at Mary I and have received a first, you will likely have been notified that you might avail of a President's Scholarship Award. So that is, I think, in the region of €1,000 towards the cost of fees to pursue postgraduate qualification. So you should get in touch with the President's office and they can give you some more information around that. But that's the gist of it, that if you've had a first in your undergraduate degree, that this might be available to you.
I think that's great. There's a few more. I mean, I suppose one that had come in that's kind of interesting, like, how do you find a supervisor? This is kind of a big task. And if you've never thought about doing this, I mean, you have to come up with a research proposal that talks about what you'd like to do. It's a bit overwhelming. So where do you begin?
Absolutely. And it's a really important question, because ultimately, if you're on a master's program, you're going to commit to normal registration is 2 years. If you're on a PhD track, its normal registration is 4 years. So your relationship with your supervisor or supervisors is really quite significant. You're going to be working with this person closely for a number of years. Like all relationships, there'll be ups and downs maybe, or disagreements, or locking horns, or and equally you'll just need to find a good fit for both your project and for yourself. So it's really very important, particularly if you are pursuing a research only degree, to find someone that you're going to work well with, that will get the best out of you. And that's something we can support you with if, again, in the process of applying for a program place, you get in touch with us and let us know, well, what your proposed area is. We can try to marry you with the best person in terms of an academic fit for that project. And you'll develop a relationship in the application process. Ultimately, in applying for a master's or PhD by research, you will need a supervisor's sign-off on the application form. So you will have had to establish already that you have the support and the agreement of a supervisor. So that relationship is built as you're applying, and it's not a case of you're being assigned a supervisor once here. You will need to have established a relationship already. Again, as I say, that's something we can assist with, a kind of a matchmaking with you and your the best possible supervisor for you. Or it may be that you have some familiarity with somebody at Mary I, whether it's somebody that you have studied with or under, or if you're coming from outside of Mary I, you may have encountered a particular academic somewhere along the way, be it their publications or presentation at a conference or some such, and you're now looking to maybe work with them, work under them, and again, that's something we can try to make happen.
I'm trying to think. I mean, there's some varying questions. I would say for the ones that you haven't answered yet, that they're quite specific. So people might want to get in touch with our office after the talk and maybe look on the website. I'm just scrolling through. Let's see. I think you've covered a lot of it. We'll be going through I'll be talking about the application process and more details on funding on the 3rd. Rebecca, you're coming back in a couple of weeks, and what will you be talking about then?
That's right. I think I'm back on the 24th of the month, and I'll be looking specifically at Faculty of Arts degrees and also Faculty of Education degrees. So looking at the graduate certificates right up to PhD programs. So some of the lists that I've thrust at you tonight, I'll be able to look at in more detail, or pick them apart a little bit and provide some more specific information, more than has been possible in this hour tonight.
I suppose what I'd reiterate for those of you who joined us late is this whole session has been recorded. So if you weren't here when Rebecca started, you can go back to where you registered on the MIC website, and you can see the whole talk in its entirety. And if you have questions, as I said, Rebecca and I will be back in a few weeks' time. And I believe next week there'll be a talk on PMEs. So those of you who are interested in getting a professional master's in education, that will be a possibility as well. So I'm scrolling through. As I said, I think you covered a lot of the questions. As I said to people, if we didn't, are there any top masters with no dissertations? That'll be our last question.
Okay, yeah, the taught masters, again, it'll depend on what masters you're looking at. You'll have to look specifically at the program info. I would think that most masters would require a dissertation, but I would choose the area that you want to have the master's qualification in first, and then see about whether the dissertation is required or not. Don't be led by the fact that a dissertation is or isn't a required component.
Well, thanks for that, Rebecca, and thanks for everyone who joined us. I'll let you bow out if you like and say goodbye. Goodbye from me, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you all.